good evening. Uh, just as always, just drop a text like a hello or a hi if I'm audible and you guys have started joining in. So we're gonna wait for some time to let everybody else join in too. Right, so in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, as always, feel free to ask it and utilize this time. Right. We're gonna wait for a couple of minutes before everybody else who's ever interested gonna join in. So you can start calling your friends whosoever are interested. So today we're gonna talk about the Lambda operations, the things which we were discussing last week. So we're gonna talk about some of the operations on Lambda. Like I think we talked about filter operations last week. So we're gonna take a quick recap there. And then we're going to move towards the other operations of Lambda. So we have some good exercises prepared for that. Right, so as I said, we're going to wait for a couple of more minutes before people will start joining in. So if you have any questions, meanwhile, please drop in a text on the chat box. I'm monitoring it. So again, hello and welcome everyone. Wish you all a good evening. And if you guys have started joining in, just drop a hi, or if I'm audible, just say that I'm audible to you guys on the chat, so it'll make more lively. Right. So meanwhile, we can wait for I think a couple of more minutes before everybody else also joins in, and we can just jump start into our discussion today. And yeah, if you have any questions from previous lectures or anything else, please feel free to drop in a text on the chat. I'm still monitoring it, so we can definitely talk about it. Okay, so then in that case, let's start, right? And meanwhile, people can still join it, right? So and keep dropping a text on chat. I'm still monitoring it, so we can talk in between as well. Right. So as you know, guys, my name is Arpit Jain, and I'm a senior data scientist myself. I have 8 years of industry experience where I've been part of multiple domains. I've seen the financial sector, I've seen the cloud domain, I was part of the manufacturing automobile sector, then I'm right now in telecommunication industry. So I've seen the industry, I've seen the data around these years, and yes, I've been working into the data science arena, and Python was always my forte. I'm a motivational speaker myself. I take career mentorships and I talk to people about their motivation and their career aspirations and all that. So if you have any questions in that area as well, feel free to drop in a text. I always monitor my chat here, right? And as I said, please try to make the conversation two-way, right? So ask as many questions as you can. In the meanwhile, I'll try to answer them as the best I can, right? So the subjects which we're going to talk about during the course are Python and PySpark. So we have started with Python. So it'll take some time for us to cover it. So we have started with functions and we have seen the masterclass on data science of Python. So we have started with pandas. And yes, subsequently we are covering other topics. So once the Python part is done, we're going to move towards the big data component of Python, which is PySpark. So where the distributed computation comes into picture. We'll be talking about that as well, right? And then you have a exclusive code right in front of you, which is Python 10. So if you want to have Unacademy Pro subscription, then you can get an exclusive 10% off by using the code which is right there on the screen, which is Python 10. So that's for your own benefit. Now, why exactly you gonna need the Pro subscription, right? So for all those who want to actually become a software developer or have just become a software developer, Unacademy brings you a platform where you can get access to the weekly shows, right, which you can watch live, and that's gonna benefit you in much better way. So what are those upcoming shows which are coming on Unacademy platforms? Those are the hiring updates in the startups and the big tech companies. So they're going to talk about their eligibility criteria, how to apply for them, and what sort of things you need to go for those placement drives for either the startups or the big tech companies. Then how to approach the code chef, pre-placement talks where the HRs from the top companies comes and they talk about their hiring process. So you have a fair chance to talk to these HRs directly, where you can understand the hiring processes, what to focus on, and what could be the main pain point areas where you would have seen the issues and which you can take as a feedback from. And then the top 20 questions where you can actually ask, which are actually most frequently asked in the interviews, right? So you can understand, you can get to know what are the top most frequently asked questions, their most probable and the appropriate answers according to your profile, so you can get a fair understanding to them. And then the accelerating development by using the real life projects. So you get an option to do a live problem solving. So you will have a mentor along with you who gonna help you out during your live problem solving session. So you can always get a help if you are stuck in a real life projects. Along with that, you also have the life journey of your fellow coders from the top companies such as Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, Google, right? So you can talk to these guys and try to understand how to land in such big companies, what things you might need to improve in your candidature, in your profile, that will eventually make the difference, right? So on top of all of this, you'll get an option to interact with the industry leaders on the platform and get a chance to take part in the online mock interviews, right? So that's anyway gonna be the major game changer. So if you are going for your placements, you need to have the mock interviews done for you. You need to understand how to behave, what sort of questions to expect, how to tackle those questions, even the questions which you don't know how to tackle those questions. So all of things going to be part of your mock interviews, and for your individual mock interview, you're going to get the feedback, right? That is going to be your eye opener, where exactly the problems are and what to improve on, right? And to all of this, you have to just pay rupees 999 for an year of academic subscription. And with this special code, which is right there on your screen, Python 10, you get an exclusive 10% off, and you can get it for 899, right? Right, so now, do you want to make sure your college projects tick all the right boxes, right? And you want to make a project that helps you get top internships, right? So now get a chance to get your college projects reviewed by one of the India's top YouTuber striver, Mr. Raj Vikramaditya. So he is gonna come for you for a show, Friday night show at 10 p.m. That's part of your Unacademy Pro subscription. If you've taken that, you can be part of this, so you can get your own college projects reviewed, right? So that'll help you to understand what things went wrong, what mistakes you were making in your college projects, and how to correct them, right? So that's gonna be again a major I would say a benchmark to your ideal projects from where you can land into a good internship, right? So don't miss this golden opportunity. So you're gonna have a show right around at Friday 10 p.m. right? Do not forget to join this official Telegram group of Unacademy platform. So where you have option to talk to all, or you can get an option of all the live updates from the channel. So you'll be getting all the live details of things coming up, and so that's the right way to have a fair understanding of what's going on. As always, do not forget to like and share, subscribe and download the application, and do not forget to press the bell icon. Right, so guys, I hope you guys have started joining in, and you have a fair understanding of things which we have discussed so far, right? So as you guys know, we are covering the Python, and in Python we started with functions. So it's just a quick recap of things which we have done till date. So we started with functions, and I told you what functions are. So nothing but a piece of code which performs some operations, right? It helps you to optimize your code, the chances of error. So if you want to perform the similar set of operations at multiple places on your code, so instead of writing those multiple lines every other time you're going to use it, rather make a generic function and you can call that similar function multiple places, right? And how to define this function? You can have a keyword def, which is def, and then followed by the name of your individual function which you're going to create, that is your user function, and then with the parentheses along with your additional parameters, and then at the end you have the code lines. Right, post that we started with Lambda functions. So I told you Lambda functions are nothing but the inline anonymous function. So there is no explicit need of writing the keyword def and the name of that function. Rather, you can use the syntax which is lambda arguments colon expression. So you have to use a keyword lambda, and then you can write your arguments and then along with that expression. So arguments can have the lambda can take multiple arguments, but need to remember this, it can only take single expression. So there is always a pro and the con, or there are situational places where you're expected to use lambda, and there are places where you cannot use lambda, right? So lambda, as I have told you, they are good where the logical expressions are simpler, right? They are not complex operations. So for a simple set of operations where we can write the code in a single line, where you can write the expressions in a single line, you can use lambda. It makes your code more readable, right? And it is really bad for the complex operations where you need multiple lines of code to be written, right? So you cannot write a lambda function in place where you are going to have multiple lines of code, right? So it's not good for that. Any questions still far, guys? So we'll quickly jump to our exercises today. So we did few things last time, and then we're gonna cover a few more today on lambda. Any questions so far? Good evening, Anirban. Thank you so much for joining in. Right. So any questions? Any questions so far? And meanwhile, I have your answer for yesterday's discussion. We were talking about the lock and the iLock, right? So yes, unfortunately, I made a mistake yesterday. So lock does not take, I would say, the column integers on both of your indexes, the row and the columns. It take on rows, not on columns. So on the columns, you have to give the column labels. Or if you're using only columns, then you can give the index. But if you're using both columns and the rows, then you have to write rows in index, and then you can use rows in index, and for columns you have to give the labels. Okay, so that was my bad. So there's a small glitch. So I've never encountered this. I've never used it in my life like the way I was using it earlier. So I've always used with labels. So I never encountered such problem. But again, it's an eye opener for me too, right? So a lock always, if you're using both, so you have to give the labels in place of columns, right? Okay, great. So if there are no questions, so let's directly jump into the exercises, and meanwhile we can solve other questions also, right? Right, so as I said, I'll just quickly cover a few of the earlier questions also, so we can have a fair understanding of how it works. So in the lambda, as I said, there is a keyword of lambda, Lambda, and you can see this has turned green, right? So this is what we did last time, and what it takes. So in place of x, you can actually write anything, right? So what if I like this, if I write it like this? So g is my function, right? And I write lambda, and I take Arpit. So like this, Arpit cross Arpit. Okay. So do this. Okay, you see it still works, right? So X is not a mandatory keyword here. X is not a mandatory keyword. So it just takes whatever you are expected to give here. You can use any function, even if you want. I told you, right? So it takes underscores as well as parameters. You can still write underscores also. So any variable is fine. It's just like whatever you are defining it here is it has to be expressed the way it has to be in your expressions as well, right? So I mean, you cannot write X and then you can write Arpit here, right? It does not make sense. So if you're writing X in your arguments, so that the same argument has to be passed in your expressions as well, right? So I think this is plain simple logic. So don't get confused that X is another keyword. No, lambda is my keyword, but in place of X we can write anything I want. Okay, so I think this is clear. And then now lambda can be used in multiple ways. Okay, so multiple usages of lambda. So I have listed down few of the important applications of lambda. So there are filter functions, there are map functions, reduce functions, even lambda is used in sorting purposes as well, and then lambda on apply, right? So we're gonna take each of these functions separately, and each of these has its own application, its own meaning. Okay, so we're gonna go in bit detail about each of these functions, and we're going to do a lot of exercises, at least 4 or 5 exercises per function. Okay, so if you have any doubt, I'll try to add more flavor to the question so that you can get a better understanding of how the things work. But again, if you still have any suggestion, any questions, please feel free to drop in a text. Okay, right, so we started with filters, right? So here, that is a code, right? So what we did here, so we defined a list, any list, right? And then in the cell, what I'm trying to do is I want to have a value which is an odd number, right? So what I did here in the filter function, I tried to add a simple logic, like if I divide the value if I divide the value by 2, and if the remainder is not equal to 0, that means that it's an odd number, right? So that same logic I'm trying to incorporate here. So now let's try to understand the syntax of a filter function. Okay, so how the filter works, it takes exactly two arguments, filter, and then you have your function here. Okay, and then you have your collection here. Okay, so this function is what you're passing the lambda function here. Okay, you can still pass any of your user defined function also. It's not mandatory that you have to use a lambda with filter. No, function filter takes a function here. Okay, function because we are incorporating lambda with filter, right? So filter is another way where we can use lambda, but lambda is the only way to use filter. No, filter can still be passed with another user defined function. Okay, so here in the function parameter, function argument, we are passing the lambda function. So lambda function is very clear, right? So I'm using x as my argument. So exactly x has to be passed in my expression as well. So what is my expression? Expression is simple. I'm saying that if the divisor of 2 and the remainder is 0, it is not equal to 0, that's my odd number. And in the collection and passing my list, so it is giving me all the odd numbers. Clear? Right? Now let's try to do this exercise. Okay, so this we did the first one, but we did not do the second one. Okay, so you have your this one. So look at this question. So you have your list, which is set of I would say string values, or I would say characters, right? So now look at this filter function and let me know the results. Okay, so you have your question right in front of your screen. So this is my input string, and this is my filter function. Okay, so filter function is taking function is taking the argument of my function, which is a lambda function, and you have an expression here. Okay, right? And then you're passing your input list, which is my okay, so in place of this I have to write this list. Okay, my bad. So just a quick question, guys, what do you think the answer would be in this? And as always, I'm seeing again a lag of at least 10 to 15 seconds. So again, if you see me mute for a longer duration, don't feel that I'm away on doing something else. It's just a network lag. Okay. Right, so just a quick answer for this, guys. It's a very simple one, so it's not difficult at all. Right, so we're gonna go a bit on the complex ones as well, but if you are able to understand this, we are good to at least go for the difficult ones. Wonderful. Right, exactly. So what does it say? My x is not equal to 2. So you have a symbol of not equal to here, right? So all the elements of my list where the value is not equal to 2, right? So as I said, what do you mean by filter, right? So filter by logical meaning is like I'm filtering out what I don't want, right? So that's the usage, that's a literal meaning of filter also, right? And that's how we are using actually in Python as well, right? So in Python, we are trying to filter out the things what we don't want. And in fact, on the vice versa, we are getting the things which we want, which is my point of interest, POI, right? So that's what I'm trying to do. So that's what a filter does. It reduces your list or reduces your collection of data, whatever you pass in your filter function, to what you want, right? So it is reducing the number of elements. It is filtering out what you need. So that's the usage of a filter function, right? That's how it is being used. So now let's try to move to our quickly to our next exercise. It's a good one. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna test. Okay. So now see what I'm trying to do here. So I have, instead of using a lambda function, right, I have created a function. Okay, so what I did say, I'm just created a function which is like the name is beginning with a, okay, and I'm passing an argument f, and what I'm saying is return where my f of 0. So now what is f of 0, guys? If you remember, I told you we can access the values based on the index values also. I mean, how that's how we access the data, right? So by indexing means we are talking about a particular index of the value. So f of 0 means the first value, first character of my individual elements of my collection which I'm passing, right? So I'm saying that if f of 0 is equal to a, return that. Okay, so return that element. So that's what I'm trying to do, right? So now here I have a list of fruits. Okay, so and it has like apple, banana, orange, papaya, apricot, right? Now in the filter function, did you see I'm not using a lambda function, I'm using the function which I created beginning with a, right? And in this is my function which I'm trying to pass on the filter, right? And I'm in the collection, I'm passing the fruits, which is my this fruits, right? And did you notice I did not use a list on top of it? I did not use a list, right? I just use filter. So filter will give me filter, right? So now I'm gonna print my filter fruits. Okay, quick question, guys. I want you to tell me what do you expect as an output from this piece of code. So just take a quick look on this code. So I have defined a function beginning with a, which is returning the elements which is my beginning with a, right? And I'm passing a list, I'm using a filter function, and I'm printing the filtered result. Okay, so just a quick thing on the chat, what do you think the output would be for this function? If you have noticed the mistake, if you have noticed the things, I think you would be able to answer this. Good question, Anirban. Yes. So filter has two arguments. Okay. So now let's see filter as a function. Filter is just another function. Okay. See what it takes. Okay. So forget about this. It'll confuse you more. So by default, whenever we use a filter function, right? So with filter, we have to pass a function. I mean, on what logic? So when I say function, so function as in I'm saying some logic which I have to pass. Okay, so like on what basis you are trying to filter it. So that that logic, I am calling it as a function. Okay, and yes, to answer your question, we can pass a function directly on top of my filter. So that's the beauty of a filter function. Yeah, good question. So now here you can see that, right? So I'm using beginning with a as my parameter, right? So sorry, as a function. I've created this. It's a user defined function, right? And it is doing something. So now on top of filter, yes, I can pass a function directly. So that's a logic. And what is that logic? This is my logic. So it will return the values which is starting with a, right? So filter can take the first argument as your function, basically your logic. So it can either be a direct user defined function or a lambda function or even a condition. Okay. Exactly. So it can be lambda or any other function. In fact, in that case, any logic also, like for example, if else condition or maybe a direct equal to condition, right? So whatever condition you want to pass. So it basically means that on what condition you want to get the filtered result. So condition, instead of writing a function, you can consider this as your syntax of filter, and then your condition, and then your collection. Okay. So this condition can be a function, can be a lambda function, or it can be a if else condition, or a direct match also, like greater, less than, greater than, equal to, and all. Okay, it can be all of these. Clear? Good question, Anirban. Thank you for asking that. Okay, now coming back to the same question. So now you know that we can pass this function. Do you think this will result in something? So what would be my expected output from this? Look at the question correctly, guys, and before answering it. So just tell me, with this function, what would be my output? Okay, cool. Now let's see. Exactly. Very well pointed out, Anirban. Exactly. It'll give me the result as an object because I just use a function. I did not tell function how I want to see the result. Exactly. Absolutely right. Because I have just given the filter function, right? I have not given how I want to see the result, right? So filter is just a function. It'll give me a result as a function, correct? That's what it has done. So it has created the object and it has given me the object ID of that particular function, right? Now if I want to see the result, I want to define how exactly I'm going to see this. So there are two ways of doing it. So I have a filtered fruit which is an object, right? So either I can define on top of this filter object, like I want to see it as a list, right? So I can write list, or say tuple also. I can write tuple also, whatever I want to see. Suppose I'm writing list, right? So this is what my answer would be in form of a list. If I write tuple, it'll be in form of a tuple, parentheses, right? This is my first way of writing it. Also, what I can do is directly in this filter fruit, as I've told you earlier also, I can give list on top of this. Okay, so I just converted my object element into a list element, and then I'm saving it as a filter fruit. And now if I save filter, if I just print filter fruits here, I'll get the right result, right? Okay. Again, a quick question guys, what if I do a list again here? Okay, so I have created list for the first time here, right? Now I'm again giving by mistake I'm giving list here, right? So what would be my output? Just a quick question. Okay, Anirban, don't get confused. I'll cover tuple in some other session. So tuple is again another form of a collection where the data is not mutable. Okay, don't go for the definition. Let's take it for the other time. I'm sorry, I used tuple wrongly here in earlier itself. But again, I'll cover the tuple topics separately in some other class. Okay, so don't get confused with that tuple. Let's use list for now. Okay. Okay. Now you have one question right in front of you. So I've used list already, right? Now by mistake, I added list again before printing this filtered food. So there's a double list. So now there's a question for you guys. What do you think? Will this result in an error? It'll give me an error, or it'll give me some output, or if output, what is the output? Rajesh, okay, do not worry if I saw that you've deleted the message, so do not worry if you've answered it wrong. It's okay to answer wrongly, right? So do not hesitate to chat. It's okay to answer a wrong thing because we're still learning. Even I made a mistake, right? So I made a mistake yesterday. It's okay to accept your mistake. It's okay. Nobody is perfect, right? So do not hesitate to drop your text, and do not, okay to delete it, but again, do not hesitate to talk. Okay, so if you do not talk, at least at this platform, it'll always be in hesitation in your mind, right? So feel free. I'm just being free here with you guys, right? So try to talk, try to make it as a two-way communication. Do not hesitate for anything. Okay, great. So we have one answer here. We have two answers here. So Abhishek says list of list, and Anirban says empty list. Okay, interesting. Now let's see the output. Did you see the difference? Okay, did you see the difference? Did it give me the same result, or it's a different result? Is it like an empty list, or is it a list of list? None, right? It won't impact my result because I've already saved it in form of a function which is part of my object, right? So from that object, I've already saved it in list. So it is already pointing to a particular function. It will not affect if I use list on top of this. It will give me the same result. Okay. So now, but if you do it like this, so now do this. Okay. So I have say apple, right? And then I have say banana. Okay. Now use list on top of this. See, did you see a difference here? Right? It's the same thing which is happening internally here. So do not get worried about list of lists. It's a different concept altogether. So it will be like if you have multiple nested objects. So list of list will only come in the place where you have one list here and then you have another list here. So it's like list of lists. You're getting it? So that's, and if you're talking about this Abhishek, like two lists, so that is something called as 2D arrays. So that will come into a concept of arrays. Okay, so that is not we're going to talk about here. So that's a different data type, that is an array. But list of lists is at least two elements in a list. Okay, but here if we do it like this, it won't make an impact. Clear, guys? Right now, just vice versa of the same thing which we have done, which we just now did. Okay, so what we did here, we passed a function here, right? So we passed a function which is beginning with a. We created a user defined function and we passed this function inside my filter function, right? So what is this function is doing? Returning the value, returning the elements where my first character is a, starting with a, right? So now here, what I'm doing is I'm just copying the same thing. I'm copying the same logic and I'm passing it in form of a lambda function. Okay. So what I just did, I use the same logic. Okay, instead of passing it as user defined function, I use lambda here. Okay, so any f, so I can write ABC also, right? So as you already know it, so ABC I can still write it, and I'm passing the lambda function with the same logic A with fruits, and then I'm printing the list of fruits. What do you think? This will result me in error, or this will give me a result? Same thing, right? So you already know it, by the way. So yes, so we can do it in either ways. Okay, so again, to answer your question, Anirban, we can pass a function, and this function can be a user defined function, or it can be a lambda function. So filter is just another functionality of Python. Okay, and I'm trying to incorporate lambda on top of my filter function. Okay, so that's the usage of a filter function. And as I said, we can pass a single user defined function or a lambda function directly as well. So both of things are same, so we can use it in either ways. Cool, guys? Exactly right, Abhishek. Yes, it'll give me a result, and which we have already seen, it's more of the same results which we got in the previous one. Okay. Okay, now another question for you. Okay, so now just look at the question correctly. So look at the question here. So what I'm trying to say, so I'm not going to explain you the logic this time. Okay, I'm not going to explain you the logic. So I have a list of countries, so some XYZ name: India, US, UK, France, China, Germany, UAE. Okay, and I'm writing a filter function, and I have some logic. I don't know what is the logic, you have to tell me that. Okay, so I have a single inline function which is my lambda, some logic, and then I'm passing my collection which is my countries. Okay, just take 1 minute, guys, and just tell me the output of this. Look at the question correctly, try to understand the logic of this. It's simple only, and then give me the result. Absolutely right, Abhishek. It's like your inline function only. So exactly. So that's what a definition of lambda is. It's an inline function. So we can. So here in the definition you did said we used 2 lines, right? So we created my function def and then beginning with a and all that, and then I created a function and passed it into my filter. But in lambda we can pass it as a single inline function. So we can reduce the code lines basically. So it's more readable kind of a code. Okay, so we have an answer from Abhishek. Abhishek says India, France, China, Germany. Okay, okay, fair enough. Do we have any more answers, guys? Or shall I take Abhishek's answer as the final one? I can give you 30 more seconds. Okay, Anirban also says India, France, China, Germany. Cool, guys. So let's try to see what the output is. Absolutely right, guys. Thank you so much for being attentive. Right, so what does the logic says? Thank you so much, Sangram, and thank you so much for answering this, and thank you so much, guys. I'm really liking it. You guys are interacting so much today. That's what motivates me, right? So let's try to interact as much as we can, right? So quickly, so what does the logic says? It says passing x. So what is x? X is what I'm passing here. So always understand this, guys, right? So the lambda does not know this x, right? So this is x, what I am passing to, right? So this x, for me, the x is the countries, right? So this is what the x means here, right? So for me, the x is countries. So I mean, when I'm saying a list, so basically it's an element of a country. So I'm passing it through a filter function, right? It takes 1 by 1 as an element. So now length function is again one of the very beautiful functionalities of Python. So you can use length to calculate the length of your characters, right? So for example, if I write Arpit here, so the answer is straightforward, 5, right? So it has 5 characters. So it's a very good functionality where you can actually count the number of characters in your I would say whatever things you're gonna pass it, right? So that's what the logic here says. So it says that wherever in whatsoever element of my list, if the length of x, length of the individual elements is greater than 3, okay? So there was a trick of UAE here, so which has an exact element of 3, and thank you guys for understanding that, okay? So I said 3, not if I do this greater than or equal to 3, then UAE would have come here, right? So UAE is part of the list now. But I said greater than 3, so wherever the characters are greater than 3 would be my part of my results, right? So India, France, China, Germany, US, UK, and UAE got eliminated. Great. So again, guys, why I'm solving these many questions is just to make you realize what is the usage of a filter function, okay? Filter, again, as I said, just take it literally. Filter is nothing but what your point of interest is. So filter is actually eliminating the things which is not required, or rather the vice versa, selecting the things which is required, right? Filtering out something, right? So that's what the meaning of filter is, and that's how we are using lambda on top of a filter function. Great, right? I think you guys are smart enough to solve this answer again. So I have a certain age numbers here, and I'm saying that where my value of age, where the individual element of my list has greater than or equal to 35. So here is your answer, right? So I'm set equal to as well, so it will give me 35, 39, and 37. Okay, just a quick trick to you again. Okay, what if I add one more element here, 35? Okay, so now I have two elements where it says 35, 35. You can see here, right? At the 0th index and at the 2nd index, my values are 35. Okay, so there are 35 two times, right? Now tell me what is the answer of this. So Abhishek says 35, 39, 37. So 3 outputs, right? So 3 elements in your list. That's what you're saying, Abhishek, correct? 35, 39, and 37. I hope you guys got the question. So instead of a single element 35, okay, Abhishek says 35, 39, again 35, and then 37. Okay, so, and Sangram says 35, 39, and 37. So we have 2 answers now. Good one, guys, good one. Okay, any more answers, guys? Yeah, Abhishek, I got your point. Anirban says 35, 39, 35, and 37. Okay, so we have still 2 answers, right? Let's go and check the answers now. Here you go, right? Exactly, Abhishek, you just said the exact right statement. List can have the duplicates. Here the list means that individual elements has their own individual identities. It has a unique index value attached to it, right? So if I'm saying list of 0, it will print me 35. If I say list of 2, it will still print me 35, but the object location of these elements are different. It's okay to have the same exact replica of values, but their object locations are different, right? So every element of a list has an individual identity, guys. Do not get confused with that, okay? And it's really good Sangram to make mistake, because if you don't make mistake, you will never understand this. Okay, never understand this. I have learned the hard way. I did it like that in my life, right? It's okay to make mistakes, and do not worry about that. That's why we are here to talk, right? So I guess you have very well understood it. And Sangram, thank you for bringing that out. List can have duplicates because every element of list is individual. It has its individual identity, right? Clear? Again, okay, let's do one more similar thing here, okay? So instead of 37, I'm still adding one more 37 here. So what would be the output here? Right, so I can have 2 more 37s even though I have the 37s right just after the one another, right? It's okay. But the thing is, it still has its own individual identity. List can have duplicates. Okay, this is a very, very important aspect of list. Clear, guys? And thank you so much for being so active again. Okay, so now one last trick for you on filter function itself. Okay, so now we're gonna use filter on top of a data frame. Okay, so till now we are using what? We are using lists, right? So we are passing the data as a series or a list, right? So now let's pass it on a data frame. I think we can do that, right? So let's try to create a data frame. Okay, so I have already written your code. So sorry, I have a data frame. Okay, so I have a beautiful looking data frame here, right? So I have 3 columns: name, relationship, and birth year. Okay, so George is my father, birth year is 1980. Likewise of all the 4 family members, right? Father, son, mother, daughter, and their birth years, right? So it's a very beautiful looking data frame. Now suppose I want wherever the data point, where the birth year is more than 2005 or 2010. Okay, so I want all the elements, all the people who has their birth year greater than 2005, right? But here the thing is, I only want the birth year. Okay, so now what I can do is, see, this is your beautiful looking code. Now the good thing is, see, still the logic remains the same. Okay, do not get confused, guys. Okay, so now what I'm doing here is, I am taking birth year as your individual element. Okay, so when I'm taking birth year alone, so what do you think this birth year will give me? So let's try to do this first. Okay, I'm just doing this df of birth year. This is, I told you, right, how to access the columns of your data frame. There are 2 ways to access your columns. The first is in the square brackets under your apostrophes, you can give your birth year as a column name, or there's another way of accessing the column is like df dot birth year. Okay, so there are 2 ways of accessing your columns, right? So now I'm just doing this. Okay, so I'm using this one. Okay, so see, so it is giving me a series of values, right? What did it give? It gave me a series of values, right? So there are 4 values in a series. So 1980, 2010, 1981, 2014. So exactly this: 1980, 2010, 1981, and 2014, right? So this is my values. So this is the list which I just got, right? Which when I access this data frame, this particular column of a data frame. So what I want now in this column, wherever the value is greater than 2005, that's what we want, right? So I can write a simple code now. So for me, this is a collection, right? I told you I can pass any collection. Collection can be a list or a series or a tuple. Okay, forget about tuple right now. List or a series for now. Okay, so I can pass a series as well. So df dot birth year, df birth year, the column is a series for me, right? Individual series is of a data frame. So relationship is an individual series. Name is an individual series, right? I can pass this. So now what my logic is, so for me, all the elements are individually taken in a lambda function, right? So that's my logic of a lambda. So for me, x here would be the elements here, like 1980, 2010, 1981, and 2014. And my logic is wherever x is greater than 2005, right? I can still run it, right? See the output. You can get the values where you have the values greater than 2005. That's what you wanted, right? So what I just did, instead of passing a list separately, I used the column of a data frame as a series, right? Did you guys understand the logic here, or is it like too much to digest? Right, and yes, so if you're good in SQL, absolutely right. So it's more of a SQL syntaxes only. And in fact, I'll tell you, even in SQL, it's more of an English sentence, right? So like where join, select, and all this. It's more of a English sentence, English query, English language kind of a code in SQL, right? The same thing is there in Python also. Python is also very lingual kind of a language. You can actually read it, and by even just reading the code also, you will understand what is happening inside the code. You can get a fair understanding of what's happening, right? That's the beauty of Python. That's why we always say that Python is comparatively easier language than other coding languages. Like if you go to Java or Perl or Ruby, right? It's a bit of a complex. There are some individual, I would say, syntaxes involved in that. But in Python is more of an English sentence language. You can, if you even read the code, right, you'll understand what's happening inside it. So it's very lingual, right? Filter क्या होता है यार? Filter करता है. And then in the simple logic, x is greater than 2005. Okay, something has to be greater than 2005, right? So roughly कहाँ पे 2005 दिख रहा है? अच्छा यहाँ पे दिख रहा है, birth year में दिख रहा है, right? And I'm passing df as df birth year, so something इससे related होगा. 2005 से ज़्यादा कौन सा है? 2010 and 2014 है. So I could just even try to gauge also what's happening in the background, right? So it's that's why Python is comparatively easier. It's more of a lingual language like your SQL query. Very well pointed out, Anirban, right? Right. So now I told about birth here, right? So I write a condition of birth here. So now what if I say x is equal to, or say George, okay, and instead of birth here I pass name here. What do you think the output would be for this? Can I do this? Can I do this thing on a string? Can I do this? The matching function, the filter function on a string. Will it work, or will this give me an error? Yep, absolutely. Why not? It will work, right? We can write the functionalities on even on strings, right? We can have the filters like that. It depends on what kind of usage I have, right? So we can definitely give. And now what if I give? So now I want the values where the names are George and Luna, right? So now how can I give, guys? So now I want both George and Luna. Right, so that's my logic is. Do you think this would work now? So I wanted the data where I need to have both George and Luna. So do you think this is the right way of representing it? Do you think it's correct? It'll give me a result. Okay, so Abhishek says we have to write x equal to George or x equal to Luna, and Anirban says no error. Okay, so we have 3 different answers. So Sangram says yes, so he says that it'll work fine, and Abhishek says there's a different way of writing it, so he has given that answer also. We'll try that, and Anirban says no error again. So okay, let's try doing that, guys. Here you go, right? Absolutely, it'll give an error. Why? Okay, so I'll tell you, I'll go to the error also, but I'll tell you why first. We need to understand how we need to understand. Okay, always, guys, always remember one thing: comma is very, very dangerous in Python. It's a small little tiny thing in Python, but it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. Okay, and that too, if it's inside a function, it's even dangerous, even more dangerous. Okay, so we have to make sure how and why we are using a comma here. So now see what just happened. Try to see the error now and try to understand what just happened. Okay, see here, it says filter expected 2 arguments but we gave 3. So now we gave a comma, right? So now what filter as a function is taking, this is your first argument, it is taking Luna as your second argument, and it is taking df name as your third argument, because it is separated by a comma, right? Comma is very dangerous. So comma, what just this comma did, it is giving me a 3 different arguments for the same function. Well, it was expecting 2 arguments, right? So that's made an error. Although we wanted both George and Luna, we'll understand how to give 2 names in a list, in a way to do that, right? But if we give comma blindly without understanding it, that's what it takes. So ultimately we are under a function, right? So we have a parenthesis here, we are still under a function. So everything matters here, right? A comma means we are defining a second argument to that function which we are in. Okay, so that's the problem which it made. Okay, so now we have one solution here. Let's try to accept that. So Abhishek says x is equal to George or x is equal to Luna. Okay, let's try to do that. Good one, Abhishek. I'm gonna try that. Okay, so he says this. So x equal to Luna. So that's what Abhishek says. So Abhishek says that instead of comma, writing comma here, let's write both of these things like this. Okay, let's try this. Worked, right? Very well done, Abhishek. Very well done, right? You can actually write in this way. So you are still defining your condition for my thing which I want, where the values is either George or Luna. Okay, and still fair enough. So he is using an operand on top of it. Okay, exactly. Very good. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for being so active. That is the one way of writing it. Okay, now, okay, Sangram says that, can we write in form of a parenthesis like George and Luna? Okay, I still did not get your answer, but I believe you meant this. Okay, so can we do this, guys? Can we do this? So what I just did, instead of passing a single element, I passed a list where the list has 2 elements and both of those 2 elements are my point of interest. Can we do like this? Let's try. Did it work? Just check. No, right? The reason is it is expecting exactly these 2 elements together, George and Luna. So there is no elements where it says that George and Luna are together. So there are 4 individual elements here. George is an individual entity. Here it is expecting George and Luna as a single entity here. We don't have this, right? So to answer your question, Sangram, no, we cannot use like this. So the only way, I mean the most crucial way where we can define is, we have to define this form of a or, where Abhishek has given you the answer, so which is a part of my x is equal to George or x is equal to Luna, right? So that's where we want to define as a condition. Clear, guys? So that's your right answer. Clear? But again, don't forget the usage of a filter function, where you are trying to filter out the results which is your point of interest. Okay, so you are trying to find out the data which is your point of interest. You are finding out what you want from the data. You are reducing what you want. Okay, so that's what the objective of filter function is. Likewise, we have other functions available also. We're gonna cover map maybe tomorrow in the tomorrow's session. But always remember, so we have like n number of functionalities on which we can use filter on top of that, right? But we need to understand when and how to use it. Okay, so yes, as I said, we're gonna cover all of these functionalities. So we have covered filter function today, but the objective of filter was to filter out your point of interest. Okay, and then map has its own set of importance, and then reduce accordingly, then sorting accordingly, and then apply even at a bigger application. So we can talk about that. Okay, cool. Right, so Sangram has a question of what if more than 2 values. Good question. So we can still write in the form of ORs, or we can write as like this also. So like there's an OR functionality also, and then OR we can pass A, B, C. So like this also we can do. Okay, so instead of writing A or B or C, we can write it like this also, like or, and then A comma B comma C. This is also another way of writing it. Okay, so or is also a function available in Python directly. Cool. So guys, I hope we made the session. I think it was a very fruitful session today, and thank you so much guys again for being so active, and I really like the way we talked today. And as always, we're gonna stick to the same pattern. Okay, so I want myself to talk less, and I want you guys to interact more, because that is the only way you guys will learn, right? I don't want myself to be an old fellow with a big mustache and a big tummy to come in the class like our old rational teachers whom we never listen to, and we throw aeroplanes on top of them. I don't want to be a such lecturer or such a teacher for you. I don't really want to be like one of those professors. I want more of an interactive session, right? So it's more fun for me also to talk, right? If I just come here and talk and just go, it'll not interest me. Ultimately, I'll lose interest, and then it's not good, right? So we want our interest to be also equally good. So let's try to interact the max we can, right? And any questions, any suggestions, any feedback which you want to give for the session, like if I'm being too slow, too fast, or too engrossed, difficult questions, tricky questions, easy questions, anything which you feel as a feedback, please feel free to give me that, right? I always try to give you the content to the best of my knowledge. I try to cover different aspects of that function, right, so that you can get a fair understanding. But still, if you have anything else, please drop in a text. I'm always all ears to your feedback, because yeah, I'm not perfect. I always say that I'm not perfect, yeah, but I'm good at something. You are good at something, so we can learn from each other, right? Great guys, so I think with this we are pretty much good for today. We can spend again 2 more minutes. If you have any further questions, anything which you want to drop a text to, I'm all yours, or else I can give you back your beautiful evening. You can watch Money Heist. It's going good, and congratulations all of you guys. So India has won yesterday. I was really happy. I'm a big cricket fan. Okay, duplicate values allowed in dictionary. Very good question, Sangram. Very good question. Okay, to answer your question, no. Even in fact, I'll cover a dictionary in our after Lambda. Dictionary is my interest, so we're gonna cover dictionaries there. But yes, to answer your question, no, we cannot have duplicates in dictionary because it's a unique key and value pair. Okay, if we have duplicates, what is the meaning of uniqueness, right? So by default, we cannot have duplicates in dictionaries. Absolutely, Stranger Things, my favorite. Yeah, I have already watched it. It's super lovely. I'm not sure if there is any third season of it, but I've watched till the second season. I just love that girl. I am forgetting her name, but she was like brilliant. I have watched Stranger Things. It's amazing. Okay, guys, I think it was really lovely talking to you all. And again, thank you so much for being so interactive. 11, right. Okay, third season is there. Brilliant, guys. Thank you so much for making your update. I think I'm getting old. Okay, I'm actually not getting time with my little one. So my daughter is small. She is like still 6 months old. So I spent most of the time I get apart from office and this, so with her. But again, yeah, absolutely. So if the third season is out, I'm gonna watch that. somehow in the late nights. I'll do that. Right, guys. So thank you so much for beating me, and thank you so much for being so active on the chat. Right. So as always, we're gonna meet tomorrow, right? Same time, 7 p.m. And we're gonna talk about the map function tomorrow. Okay. So we have covered filter today. I'll give you the quick recap also tomorrow, so that you guys are still in touch. And then we're gonna cover the map function and then other functions also as time permits. Okay. So we're gonna talk likewise. Cool, guys, and thank you once again, and thank you so much. I really liked today's session, and we were pretty active today. Let's try to maintain the same pattern for our rest of our classes. So let's meet tomorrow 7 p.m. Cool. Thank you so much, guys. Wish you a good evening, and stay safe and keep enjoying.